you reported Kargil from on ground. Why did you decide to actually go there?
Well, the credit must go to my best editor that I worked in my career, Vinod Mehta of Outlook. And there was no way sitting in the northeast in Guwahati that I would have had a chance to go and report from Kargil, which is the other extreme of the country. From east to northwest, he sent me because he said, this fellow knows the military a little bit. He interacts with them regularly. He also travels in the toughest parts of the northeast without complaint. So let's send him there. And one fine day, one afternoon, so it was all of a sudden that I get a call, come to Delhi, your tickets for Leh have been done. So I said, why? So you're going and reporting from Kargil. That's how it happened.
First emotion in your heart was?
Well, big opportunity, also big responsibility, and then a bit, 1% of fear, because I already had a family to support, two boys, my wife. We were already married for 10 years, 11 years. But that was the last thought, of course. First was excitement. Second was apprehension, whether I'll be able to bring the correct reports. I'd never reported outside Northeast till then. So I'd done about 16 years in the profession by that time. But all of it reporting the 7 states or 8 states of the Northeast.
Basically, correct reports would depend on the conversations you'd end up having in Kargil.
Exactly. And the understanding and the kind of interpretation that you could do and what was happening on ground. So I came to Delhi, and the next morning, early morning, there used to be flight to Leh. We landed in Leh. I was given a rookie photographer with me. Vinod Mehta was insistent always that every print story must be accompanied by great photographs. So there was a photographer with me. And I flew in there on a Wednesday morning, and I was told by Saturday afternoon, your story, your report has to be, in fact, Friday night, your report has to be on the Delhi desk. So barely 2 days to work on. And that was the scary part, the first week or the first 4 days. Because after we reached there, Wednesday evening, that time Kargil used to take about 9 hours from Leh by road. So we first hired a cab, piled on some rice, some biscuits, some water, because there was no hotels there to stay in or even get food. We were told about it. I mean, couple of my colleagues, senior colleagues, had been to Kargil before me for the previous 2 weeks. So some input was there. So we went, and there was no place to stay. So the first 2 nights we slept in the sumo by the riverside in Kargil, and started
with the threat of
artillery firing. Of the shelling and the firing, all that. But frankly, I mean, okay, Kargil was a high point, certainly, no doubt, because the high point came after the war, in the sense that I dug out, thanks to my editor's encouragement, stories that were uncomfortable for the army and the government. We raised questions about intelligence failure. We raised questions about what went wrong and what could have been avoided, and so many deaths could have been avoided. All that we did in cover stories of Kargil. So they were the tougher part, the stories to do. But that time, in those 45 days that I was there, from maybe 3rd or 4th of June to 26th of July, every week we used to travel between Leh and Kargil and Dras and Batalik, all those places which became famous later. Vikram Batra, I met, the famous Vikram Batra. Met him. And 3rd day after that, he died in that action. So there is a photograph of him standing in front of a long, big gun, machine gun, which he had captured in the first operation that he had done. And he had narrated the story of how Pakistanis were taunting him, Sher Shah, ab wapas nahi ja paoge, vagara. But he was a very gung-ho and a very confident young man at that point in time.
Have you watched Sher Shah, the movie?
I didn't, because I have everything in my head, so I don't want to go and spoil that.
My question was going to be that what do you think movies can't capture?
Movies can't capture the real action, the emotions, and the fear people have, the soldiers have. I mean, they're not as if they're supermen or they don't have fear. In fact, fear drives them in many cases to do the acts of bravery that we see. And soldiering is the only profession where people go beyond their call of duty, right? They lay their lives online. I mean, putting lives online is no other profession demands that. I mean, except people in uniform, nobody else demands that. And to do that with great discipline and without expecting anything in return, I think is the greatest virtues of soldiers. I've written essays on this. The Indian soldier asks for so little from the society or from the government, and yet remains cheerful, remains committed, remains patriotic, and also sort of loses lives in the process. So I saw all that. So Kargil was good in so long as of the experience of reporting was concerned, because I lived with them. I ate parts of their rations, puri, sabji, sometimes the typical Rajput regiments, the laddu that they make, churan, the churma as they call it, churma laddu kind of a thing. And I saw their lives from close quarters, but it wasn't my, I didn't have any fear, because I didn't see hand-to-hand combat really. We were always on the road. The hand-to-hand combat was happening on the peaks, which we didn't climb. And anybody who makes or has made career out of the Kargil glory in our field, in journalism, is actually lying when you say that we were in danger. We were never in danger in that sense. In fact, I felt more fearful, and I was in more dangerous situations in the Northeast. And when I was detained, kidnapped, or forcibly confined twice by militants, insurgents in the Northeast.
No, we're going to cover
No,
this.
I'm saying,
also.
so that was more fearful, that was more challenging than Kargil. But Kargil certainly made me, gave me a higher profile. People came to know my byline, Nitin A. Gokhale. And that also then brought me to Delhi. NDTV invited me in 2006, 7 years later. So that was Kargil.
What was Vikram Batra like off camera?
He was genuine, he was passionate, and he was committed. So I know his boss, who retired as the Northern Army Commander.
Colonel Joshi?
Yes. So later, was the Northern Army Commander during the Ladakh crisis. Very close friend, Joe.
Sanjay Dutt played him in LOC Kargil.
Yes, I believe so. I didn't see
I'm
that.
sorry, army folks.
No, Lakshya, I saw one of those movies which I was impressed with, which, except for Amitabh Bachchan, who again been my favorite of the 80s and the 90s, but in that movie, he was over the top in Lakshya.
Yeah. Okay.
But otherwise it was a quite realistic portrayal of soldiers, or the fears that the soldiers go through, and the kind of training that they get to become what they become, what Hrithik Roshan's character becomes at the end. Lakshya was quite good, and Vikram Batra was like that. So he was passionate. Only thing that he knew was to lead his men at that young age. He had just graduated out of the Indian Military Academy in 1998. And I found him ever smiling for whatever that couple of hours that we interacted in the Mashko Valley near Dras near Kargil. I found him to be very cheerful, very happy-go-lucky kind of a person. And then later I met his twin, 10 years later, who's an ICICI bank officer, who's also as cheerful and as happy person. So I have that memory, but there were several others who did equally daring, equally dangerous missions, got some reward, some didn't get it. But that's the nature of the war, and they live with it.
What was the most haunting thing you saw in Kargil?
Again, soldiers injured, their limbs severed, they're in pain. So, as I said, I saw death up close in the Northeast much more than I saw in Kargil. Because if it happened on the peaks, and they were then carried into the ambulances or in the helicopters. Didn't see that. But what I saw as a collective psyche of the Indian soldier was, he doesn't question orders. He is fully committed to what is to be done at whatever cost, even to the cost of his life. And knows only one thing, that they are here to do a job, and they will do it without reservation, without questioning. I think for me, that is the greatest virtue, and that remains in my mind. It's not haunting, but it's something that I respect them enormously for. as far as the Indian soldier is concerned.
That was the one moral of the story you got from that story of your life.
Absolutely.
Greatness of the Indian Army.
And greatness of the Indian Army, the commitment that they have to this nation.
Okay. The Indian military in general.
Indian military, of course.
Okay.